Welcome to the Solo Promoter Podcast, the podcast that is one guy talking about tabletop pro wrestling and fighting games, including Filsinger Games, Legends of Wrestling, Champions of the Galaxy, Go Fight Pal, The Squared Circle, and much more. Formerly the Filsinger Games Fan Podcast. This show is not affiliated with any gaming company. Welcome to the show. My name is Grant Bachoco. This is episode number 96. Well, I'm not going to go in for a big, long, rambling intro where I talk about what's been going on with my tabletop, because we have an amazing interview coming up for you right now. This is my annual chat with Tom Filsinger. And we will be going card by card through all the cards that are in Mythworlds and some Promoter Prime cards as well. And this is it's a super fun interview. I will say that there was a little bit of some audio issues on my end, and I apologize for that. I think this is still listenable, so you'll be okay. But I will also say that there is a video that goes along with this, and since during our talk we talk about some of the unused artwork, you really have to watch the video to get the full effect of what we're talking about. But I wanted to release this as audio as well, because I know some folks don't have time to watch a video. They just want to hear the audio. So you can, there will be a link in the show notes to the video. So if you wanted to scrub through and see the unused artwork, that's what you can do. But without any further ado, here is my 2024 interview with the Dark Menace himself, the one, the only Tom Filsinger. Well, I am super excited to once again be joined for our annual tradition by the creator of Filsinger Games and Champions of the Galaxy, the Dark Menace himself, Tom Filsinger. Tom, welcome back to the show.
It's a thrill to be here, and I am very pleased, and I am looking forward to talking to you and to our fans, our many wonderful promoter fans.
Absolutely. Well, it's always a little special sort of, I get excited when I get your email going, hey, are we going to do the annual, run through of the new set? And I'm super excited that you enjoy this, because I know a lot of people do too. And I guess we're gonna go through all the characters, but I wanted to ask a question that several promoters asked, because I did put out a thing to promoters like, hey, I'm going to be talking to Tom. If you have questions about Mythworlds, let us know. And several promoters have asked about your motivation to bring back Godsend into the mix after it seemed that we got rid of him a few sets ago. What was your motivation to bring him back now?
Well, it's the same motivation that they keep bringing back the Joker and Doctor Doom and Galactus. A good villain's a good villain. It's really that simple. And Godsend provides a lot of opportunities for ideas and storylines. I really can't think of a better answer than that. Call DC Comics and ask them why they keep bringing back the Joker.
That's great. Is it difficult, because Godsend is sort of this omnipotent character who can do what he wants and seemingly snap his fingers and cause things to happen. Do you have to be careful writing a character that is like that powerful? Almost like, Superman is so powerful, how are you going to beat him? Is it the same with Godsend?
Sort of. There's a hierarchy of power in the universe. Godsend's well above mortals, but he's not the highest. And there are other people at his level, and those people are competing with each other. Kind of like the world we live in today. Where are we? We're the peasants, right? There are people more powerful than us fighting for power, good and bad. And we're spectators, and it's the same in the galactic universe too. There are Godsends, and then there are people. You got to remember that Godsend isn't pure evil. Godsend is a narcissist. A narcissist becomes evil because they hurt others, whether they are doing so willingly or not, just simply to satisfy themselves. Pure evil does harm because it wants to do harm. Godsend does it by accident. They said that about Galactus too. Galactus wasn't evil. He just had to be fed. And so he goes from planet to planet. And so we have a different dynamic with Godsend and Galactus. But it is ambiguous in terms of its good versus bad.
Excellent. And you
was that a good answer? Or
that is a great
answer your question?
Absolutely. And but it opens up me to another question anyway to think about is you say that Godsend is more powerful than most of the people I guess we know about in the GWF, and is there somebody above Godsend and will we see that person come into the GWF?
Well, now you're getting into a theological discussion. There has to be somebody above Godsend. One would hardly believe that he's the highest power in the universe. But he is on a higher level, and sometimes the powers of the highest level do not have direct access to the physical universe. Godsend is an in-between, an intermediary, who does have access to the physical universe. There are people on his level who don't want him to have that access because he abuses it, as we have seen. He's reckless with it. And so his battle is ongoing, trying to avoid the authorities on his level.
Got it. All right. Well, we will keep our eyes peeled for any other bigger galactic beings. Now,
should I write a book sometime about the metaphysics of the universe?
I think people would love it. I think people would think it's great. Well, let's we're gonna go character by character now. And when I did ask promoters to submit questions, message board user The Faction asked to have you pronounce the names as we go through, because I guess there's some talk about how to pronounce the names so we can get official wording. But I think for this first character, we don't need a pronunciation for, because he's sort of the headliner, and that is Pinnacle.
Oh, Pinnacle?
Oh, Pinnacle. Oh, is that his? So this is Pinnacle, and I guess the big question here is, and maybe you can't say, or we'll find out, is there is sort of speculation that this is Perfect Specimen, because Perfect Specimen didn't make his way to the new to Myth Worlds. And can you let us in on your development on this character and maybe drop some hints on whether maybe you believe it's Perfect Specimen or not?
That's one of those stories to still be resolved, so I'll leave that at that.
Okay.
That's kind of obvious that's a possibility, and that will be resolved at some point. So to answer that question just by itself, I would have to say that we don't have the answer to that yet, and anything is possible.
Excellent. Well, let's talk a little bit about the character. Where did this character come in when you were developing this world? Was this when you were developing this game edition, was this one of the first characters you came up with? Is Pinnacle?
Well, yeah, definitely. The whole, I guess, metaphysics of this universe is that there is a Godsend-like being that runs it and kind of operates on the same principles that Godsend operates on in many universes. To get a stronghold in those universes is to have a conduit that poses as a hero in order to gain power in that universe. Please watch that concept. It's an old concept that's been used on Earth too. And so this is how he ingratiates himself to galaxies so that he can create the playground for himself to have fun.
Excellent. And as you have in past years, you have sent along some great sort of alternative art or art in progress of these characters. And we have a couple here for Pinnacle. If you want to talk about these, and I kind of put them in order that they were numbered that you sent them to me. So, but here he's a little clean shaven and he doesn't have all the sort of accoutrement, bangles and stuff. So, I'll just let you talk about these images as we go through.
I don't remember the order that I sent. I think this is a good place to start, though, because this looks like the very beginning. And yeah, so, this was the prototype to begin with. Now the next step is how to add, or if to add, more accessories, which I wanted to do. I was trying to create a character with a certain kind of look that would have the same charisma, apparent charisma, to a population that Godsend had when he was in, let's say, our universe, the original Godsend. It's got to be somebody good looking, charismatic, that is able to hypnotize the masses. So that's step one. Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
hey, that's good. I like how you did that. I kept. I don't know if that's the first time the P made it there. It looks like it might have been. The P wasn't there before, right?
Right. No. Yeah. It's not there on the first
okay.
image. Yeah.
Right. He needed more. He needed more to define his personality. I was the one who dressed him up. I didn't like those wristbands. I wanted these kind.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a certain well, the beads are there. I wanted a certain vibe for this character, almost a new age vibe.
He also got a goatee from that first image to the second one.
Now
He
I
got a
see
goatee as well, which I guess is the galactic symbol for evil, right? No, I'm kidding.
He is presenting himself as a hero.
Yeah.
And goatees do look good on some people. It's really that. So I wasn't deliberately signaling that. I was just trying to make him look cool and hip.
Now I noticed between these first two pictures and this third one, you can see he got his beads, sort of wristbands, but he has pupils in this third one. Were you toying with maybe him not having pupils to start with, or was that just something
I don't remember.
Okay.
I don't think I was. I think that's just the way that Daryl drew it. And now I wanted the pupils. I didn't want him to be blatantly and obviously evil looking. That's not the way Godsend operates.
Well, and I like even in this third image, he sort of gets a little smile too. Like he like it's not a big smile, but compared from the last picture, he does sort of get like a little bit of a, hey, you can trust me. Come on, I'm okay.
Well, you want it to be the kind of person that people would look at and say, hey, this guy's cool and he's really good too, and he saved us from catastrophe in our universe. Obviously, this is our hero, and that's the kind of thing I was going for.
Excellent.
And then over, oh boy, I love those colors. I mean, I love working with Daryl. I love working with Tom. I mean, we're getting just spectacular work in that background, which is the basically the Arc of Eternity arena.
And Pinnacle also got a foil card as well as sort of a like a little giveaway thing. Which version of Pinnacle do you use in your Fed? Do you use the standard version that came in the set, or do you use the foil version?
I go back and forth. It depends on whatever I feel is what I want for a certain match. So it really, I can't even give you a rule of thumb on that. I just use them both.
Excellent. Well, moving on, we have Teth, who's one of my favorite characters from the new set, and he, of course, is sort of a follower, I guess, or with Pinnacle on his team. Can you talk about the development of this character and maybe bringing back a sort of a race that we had seen before in the character of Bex?
Well, I knew I wanted Pinnacle. He had to have some bodyguards, some trusted people of that type. I thought, well, why create a new race when we really have already seen in the three a certain race represented in these schemes? Let's bring somebody else from that race in. I like the added microphones, I guess you'd call them, or that would be too tame a word technologically for this universe, but those are sort of all-purpose computers helping him to be able to guard and perhaps even attack and defend using those devices provided by Pinnacle. That's what I would say about Teth.
Yeah, and I was very excited to see this card because I just know, I mean, speaking for myself, but I know other people as well, that Bex was a very popular character. So it's fun to see another, person from that race. And even though I know it's not Bex, but it's fun to see sort of that little world get another piece added to it.
Yeah, I agree. That came a little later, actually.
What do you mean by that? That came.
Well, I mean, I knew I wanted the character. Mm-hmm. I might have even written the game card, but the look. Then, when it came down to saying to Daryl, "What do I want him to look like?" It dawned on me to use somebody from the 3 for that. So the character existed before this.
Before that race was used. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Well, then we have Demonicus, who I think out of the whole set, as far as we know, is the only sort of upgrade or character that got an upgrade in this set. Can you talk about sort of transforming Demon Godsend into Demonicus?
Yeah, Demonicus is thrilled. He waited it out. He stayed loyal, and bang. He's getting paid off for it. And I'm sure he will continue to be being paid off for it for a long time. I don't know how long the GWF is going to be here and whether he would then stay, which sort of makes sense that he would stay. But it depends on how the resolution is to leaving Mythworlds. But I knew this day was going to come, and I enjoy, because those feuds remain intact then, with him and Grandmaster, with him and Musk, and others. So anyway, then teaming him up with Teth, the 2 bodyguards, just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, now we sort of head on over to Atlantia, the kingdom of Sutek the Destroyer. And we're going to start with Sutek the Destroyer. So, spoiler alert, if anybody's watching this and they don't have Mythworlds yet, I don't know what to tell you. You got to buy the set. You got to read it. But how did you, before we get into this, I guess, how did you pick sort of the 3 mythological worlds that we're going to visit through these characters for this set?
I think they were relatively easy choices. Atlantia was in for sure. I'm really a fan of Egyptian mythology. In fact, that was my favorite one to do. And I love this art. I love these colors. So I already knew these histories. The Greek one was kind of obvious too. Oh, I don't know if you want me to jump to the Greek one already.
No,
just make it quick.
Please talk about how you picked all 3, and then we'll continue through these.
But yeah, the Greek one made sense since there's history of that in our game. So, and in fact, I was going to use Actaeon and bring that connection to Actagon and all that. And then I decided I didn't want to do that. I wanted to just do something new. So that history is there, and that feud with the gladiators, and so there's already story. The Norse one just seemed like the next big one in our culture that people know the best. I know there's others, but these 3 do sort of stand out in American culture. And I knew I would want to work with a character with the powers of a Loki. And I did. I really enjoyed that.
Excellent. Well, we have Sutek the Destroyer here, and we have some early sketches of him to show. This looks like a very sort of preliminary sketch, maybe, of Daryl's. But it is a little bit of a different pose than we wound up with. Right.
I don't, sometimes I just trash things and all that. And so I haven't sent you every single thing between us, but oftentimes we start with poses. And this was one of them that I didn't like compared to the one we used, which I like a lot. One of the tricky parts was Anubis and Sutek technically look alike. And so I wanted them to be distinguishably different, even with the similarities there. And so we accomplished that by giving Sutek more of a helmeted look. Yeah, I mean, it looks like his whole face is covered. Whereas with Anubis, that's not the case. In fact, here's Anubis. I use these little cutouts. And so I have this handy because whenever I roll a match with Anubis, this is right there, so I don't forget that we can cancel a move.
Yeah.
Which is a very powerful thing and is easy to forget, but that's Anubis now. But the point is you could see that Anubis has his normal face and he has the mask, which is a way to distinguish them.
Yeah, and this is a lot of fun because you sent me some of the, which we'll look at here in a second, but you sent me some of the sketches for Anubis. And this first sketch, he's got a human-like face. So that immediately made me wonder, well, do these guys have human-like faces and they're wearing these masks almost like luchador type things? Or is Anubis's face sort of this dog-like, lack of better term, dog-like face? Or does he have...
That's how he's known.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is his real face. That was... I only sent it because that was just simply a misinterpretation or me not communicating to Daryl that I wanted him to still have that appearance. So we quickly moved past this because, like I said, that wasn't communicated in the way that Daryl knew that I wanted the real face.
I do like...
Can I show you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I show you another surprise?
Sure.
This sits here in my room. On his throne, Anubis. Real nice statuette here.
And was that maybe somewhat of an inspiration for this character?
Well, a lot of Anubis mythology is an inspiration for this character, but I do like his appearance. I do like what he stands for too. Although I didn't talk about that a lot in the game because it goes astray of the game. But anyway, so there's Anubis, and as he has been immortalized. And
he sits in your office and counsels you.
At what?
He sits in your office and counsels you.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. The mythology of Anubis is interesting. I recommend anybody to look into it. He's a what do you call it? A guide to the other worlds. He travels between our worlds and the worlds that are occupied by people like Godsend. I don't know if he gets quite that high, but he travels within mortal worlds. He's known as the god of, well, I shouldn't say the god of, but one of the gods of the underworld in Egyptian mythology. But really, he's a traveler between the worlds. So it's an interesting character. I recommend it.
Maybe somebody who could help characters travel to other worlds from myth worlds, right? Maybe.
Possibly. That's possible. Yeah.
Yeah. What I was going to say about this picture is I love he still sort of has the little dog face on his helmet. It's just kind of hinted there. I just think that was a nice touch if you were going to give him a real face. Nice
looking character. I thought I'd send that to you, even though it was not the evolution.
Yeah.
All right. So this is early, I guess, when we got to the face. This is nearly it, looks like.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty close. I think we might have one other one here. Oh, no, that's it. We just have those two. So there's the final there.
I can't even really tell the difference. It might just be coloring.
Yeah, that's really great.
Yeah.
All right, for this next character, I'm going to let you say her name because this is one of the ones that people going back and forth on the name.
I say Iseus.
Iseus.
That's how I say it. And I again will say what I've said before, because Stan Lee was always asked the question of how do you pronounce it, and he always said however you want because it's a made-up character anyway. But I will give you my pronunciation. I say Iseus when I'm talking to myself when I'm playing, and when the neighbors worry about me.
I thought his wife isn't named Iseus. Who's he talking about? Okay. So we have some in progress artwork here. I like this one. This one is like very sort of cocky and
I know.
looking down upon everybody else. But
I love it. It's just not the character.
yeah,
She's a good guy on the side of Anubis, and they're the heroes. I love that. It's just not the character is all.
yeah. And it's funny because she doesn't look in this picture, and I know this is in the character, but in this picture she doesn't look like she's super tall, but she's still looking down at you. You know what I mean? Like she's still, even no matter who you are, she's still, But that again, that's not the character. So
this is again moving towards. I still wanted a lighter, friendlier, warmer look, more heroic for this character.
And that's
not much of a change there.
Yeah.
But then that message got through to Daryl that I'm looking for heroes here, and I love the backgrounds. Now that's all Tom Ricker, and the fact that they all connect. I wanted each planet to have its own color scheme on the cards, and this one was these colors, which I love. I absolutely love them. I love these characters.
Well, moving on to Olympus, which may be my favorite of the three myth worlds that we visit. And again, I'm going to let you say your pronunciation of this character because this is another one people were asking about.
Right. I say Deus.
Deus.
That's me. And you know what I've enjoyed playing? Here, I'm even going to show this. Here's my next card, which I've already stated online. This is how I write these things out. I don't know if that's showing. I think this is my next card. And you can see the main event. If you can see it, is Pinnacle and Anubis.
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, Bill. I like imagining what the fans of these planets are like. And the fans of Olympus are just all in with the heroes. They're totally in with them, and they're very fervent fans too. So anyway, Deus is the leader, the manager. I tried to give him a halfway decent fighting card so that he's not a total pushover. In fact, I'm looking forward to using him in Nexus a little bit in tag action, just because I like the team. And however they do is what they do. I've got my power ring here all ready to go to put on the Minotaur or Thesis. I said it. Or sometimes like Tempest or Quagmire. Since in my Fed, he's formed a strong alliance with those groups too. Or also with Titan Samurai. So those good guys are all clinging together with Deus and the Greek team because Anubis and Iseus are a little bit more cautious about new affiliations. Deus is jumping right into them because he's made friends with Nexus and trusts him, in my Fed.
Well, I love the concept of the power ring, and I could be wrong because there's so much GWF history, but I think this is like kind of the first time where there's been an item like this where, I mean, we've always had, like the Alpha Stone and things like that gave people power. But this is something where different people can use this item. And I even love the concept that you kind of laid out in the handbook. It's what if somebody stole this and was using it for themselves, So can you talk a little bit about just how you came up with this idea of the power ring as this sort of powerful artifact?
Kind of a simple thing. way back, going back to the 60s, there was this old cartoon on TV called Hercules. Very crudely done, but somehow still had charm. They did something like hundreds of, I don't know, at least 100 of these cartoons. I don't know if you ever saw it. Um, it's limited animation, and yet it's got a incredible theme song. Hercules, da 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 da. Have you ever heard of this?
I've heard of it, but I haven't watched. I haven't
Right.
watched any
Well,
of it.
anyway, he'd always put on a ring at the end of the show, so that he could get his powers and win the fight. Um, and that might even be part of the Greek mythology lore. I can't remember that. But I thought, yeah, if he's got a ring that he could pass along to his people, that's an interesting thing. And I haven't had it stolen yet. I'm waiting on that one. It's probably going to be Loki, who has already been known to covet this ring. So I haven't gotten to that storyline yet. I'm at that stage where the storylines are just developing organically. It's nice. They're just coming together. I will probably want to have that storyline. Like the basilisk has still not been unfreed yet, or somebody else hasn't been taken over like Quagmire. Those things haven't happened in my Fed yet. Those are probably coming.
Excellent. Well, we also have a preliminary sort of sketch here for Deus as well. By
Yeah, and I
Daryl.
like immediately from the start, this was what I wanted. So then, Daryl presented this to me. This is what I wanted. I don't know what number in the progression this is, but this was certainly enough to say, let's finish it now.
Yeah, it's very close to what the final is. And then we have Thesis, who you said earlier, Thesis the Brave, who I will say is my current Galaxian champion. He is, because what I did for mine was when I started this Mythworlds year was Perfect Specimen was my Galaxian champion. So when they go to Mythworlds, Perfect Specimen's not there. But Pinnacle saved the belt from the galaxy. He brought the belt along with us, and Pinnacle, wanting to show that he's a good guy, didn't put himself in the tournament to crown the new champion. And Thesis actually won that tournament, maybe a little bit of help from the power ring in the final match.
What did you give his power? Which of the three?
You know what I always seem to do with that kind of thing is lower the pin rating. That's usually what I seem to do, but he has defended it a couple times, including defended it against Shane, and Shane lost by DQ. So that's how. I mean, yeah, Shane lost by disqualification. So, which led to an interesting feud, which I'll tell you here in a second. But anyway, yeah, this I love all the Greek characters in this. So, talk about the development of Thesis here, and I think we do have some art as well.
Right. So we had the pose here. I remember Daryl giving me several poses, and I did like this one. I didn't want that much of his kid face covered, and I wanted him to be holding something. When I went online and looked up for Daryl to tell him what I want him to be holding, I found whatever that weapon is. I don't even know its formal name. And then as soon as I gave him that weapon, I immediately realized I should be using that weapon as part of his story. And I've enjoyed doing that because he's a really classic, noble, good guy, but don't mess with him. If you turn a corner, he'll turn the corner too. You just got to start it. And if you start it, out comes the tamer, and look out.
So
right, so now we got the clean shaven one, right?
Yeah, a little bit more of his face there.
More of his face. And then with the weapon added.
Yeah.
And then I knew I wanted to have a Minotaur, Asterion, I'm repeating that. Because then I thought, how about if this guy, Theseus, is the one who tamed him? Because it might even be the case that Theseus, it might be Theseus, in the real mythology, was the one who tamed the Minotaur. I can't remember if that's exactly right. And I didn't even want to be exactly right. because the point is our myths or distortions of what really happened anyway. So if this guy tamed the Minotaur and is continuing to be the guy that tames him, let's make them a team. And so that's the way I went with that.
Well, this, I will say that when I looked through the cards the first time, this was my favorite card art, and has become one of my favorite characters here is Asterion. I just really like this art for whatever reason. I just think it's a lot of fun, and I love these kind of off the wall sort of characters.
Yeah, and when I play the Power Ring, if they're a tag team, Labyrinth, the Power Ring always goes to Asterion to make all his zeros +1s. Because, there's 3 of them on the card. So that, to me, is the best way to enhance their team.
Yeah.
That's for me, personally.
And so
right, there we go.
He's got a little less shoulder pad accoutrement as well.
What the reasoning was for that. This looks nice, too.
Yeah. Well, in my last card that I played out, it was Shane challenging Thesis for the title, and Shane used Frontier Justice and got disqualified. And then Asterion attacked Shane after the match. Because Shane, in my Fed, Shane is just on his own. He's out for himself. He's sort of like the ultimate Stone Cold Steve Austin. He doesn't care about. He's not. He's just out for doing his own thing. And but Asterion attacked him because I just thought of this in the moment, and it made me laugh. And I said, "This is what I'm going to go for." Is that Asterion found out how cowboys treated steers back on Earth, and so he's really upset, and he knows what that bullwhip is for, and so now I have this new feud between Shane and Asterion, which I'm really excited to play out. I think that'll be, but it made me laugh in my head with he found out what they do to cows, on Earth, and he's really mad about it.
Well, good for him. He's tolerating what Thesis does to him, apparently. He can take it out on Shane.
Right. And then we move to Valhalla, the world of danger, of course, with Loki here as sort of the leader of that world.
Temporarily. Well, at least it's supposed to be temporarily because Odin is away on a quest.
Yeah.
And, they always did this in the Marvel comics, too, or whatever. Why would you leave this guy in charge? You know what's going to happen. But whatever, and across universes, they make that mistake. And we definitely didn't want him to look like the Marvel Loki, and so this doesn't. And I like it a lot as having his own look.
Right.
He's not a great athlete. He's a sneak, is all he is.
Yeah.
And it shows up in his stats.
Well, and I love this artwork that you sent as sort of the preliminary, which I guess you could, looks more like the Marvel comics, maybe a little bit Loki, but I really love this artwork. I think this artwork is a lot of fun, and it's completely different than what we wound up with. So can you talk about the process here?
Yeah, I do agree that I think that that's an interesting looking character. I just didn't like it a lot. And I preferred to move off in a different direction. We went through a few of them. I don't know if I sent all of them.
No, I think this is the only one you sent for Loki.
Yeah, there might have been another one too. And it's just a matter of taste at some point. When he drew the one that we use, I really liked the look of that character. It's a strong character. It's one of those characters you can do a lot with. I wanted to remove him totally from the Marvel look, but retain the essence of that mythological character's personality.
Well, let me ask you a question, because I really like this piece of art that you sent along. And last year when we had this conversation, I loved that sort of quagmire whale where he, you know, the Quagmire. I just love the look of that character. I know it doesn't fit for Quagmire. This one doesn't fit for Loki, but I just love that artwork. In the past, you sort of did these bash sets, like the Galactic Bash, where you used unused artwork to sort of create new characters. And I know we kind of have secret history sets now. And I know you also mentioned on the message boards you're kind of slowing down the releases a little bit. But is there any chance maybe down the road where some of this artwork could become other characters in the GWF?
That is so cool to bring up Bash. I hadn't thought about that in ages. And you're right, it would. You never do know. I never thought of it. So I appreciate the comment.
Yeah. That I still think about that whale. Or I know it didn't work for Quagmire, but it's just such a unique character to think in a wrestling ring.
Right, because it's so different. Back in the old days, a lot of those Bash characters, or at least some of them, were Larry Snelly art, and Larry loved to draw. He just loved to draw things and send them to me. So I always had a kind of a backlog of characters that he thought looked good, even though they never made it into the game. But you're right. If they're different enough from anything that's already there, you can just create a whole new story around it.
Yeah. Well, Loki looking good here for his in his final form, and definitely different from that other one. And then we have Vale. Am I saying that one the same way you say it? Yeah.
I would say Vale, yeah.
Yeah. And,
in the many mythological legends, and they vary, I don't think there's any total canon. I think that there is variation between countries and languages, and so you'll see in some cases Loki had one son, he had two sons, he had a daughter. They're kind of all over the place. But one of those stories is that he had a son, and I thought that'd be cool. And he had a son that was kind of wild. I thought that's cool too. So I really like Vale. In fact, I've got him. He looks young, and he needed to look young because Loki's his father. And of course, we're in different dimensions and different worlds. Same issues we have with aging in our universe, and how old are these people, and that aliens differ.
When you were doing the teasers for Myth Worlds, you were very careful in saying that if if we saw too many of the cards, we would know what the theme is and things like that. And, we got to see Pinnacle. We didn't get much information about him, but we got to see Pinnacle. And then Vale was the other character that we saw before Myth Worlds was released. And my instant thing was that Pinnacle was like a kid or a grandkid of Lord Nexus, and Vale was a kid or a grandkid of Wolf. So my thought was that we were getting a full set of, third generation stars or whatever, because we only showed us those two things, but definitely much different than what it turned out to be. And we also have an early sketch here of Vale as well.
Boy, that's the right idea already there. So that didn't take much. I mean, I'm sure that went, the way it looks to me now, pretty much straight to inking and finishing.
Yeah. Yeah, well, super fun character. It's fun to have sort of that
It's a young, hardcore guy.
Yeah.
He's the fighter. Loki's the brains. And I'm really curious how Ice Star in my... let's see, what do I call it? Random Acts of Terror. I enjoyed coming up with that for my... And it's got Ice Star versus Vale in a cage match, which favors Vale, but you never know.
Yeah,
so I like this character.
Speaking of Ice Star, one of my things is... I believe in the handbook. We're jumping back to Sutek and Anubis a little bit here with what I'm going to say here, but in my Fed, I have Sutek trying to convince Ice Star to sort of be his protege. Like he sees something in him to go up against Anubis, you know. So I don't know. I just love playing with those different relationships, and just because you mentioned iStar, talking about it, where he's and iStar's like, no, absolutely no, I'm not.
Right.
I'm not hanging out with you. No, but he's like, come on, I'll teach you. You know, like I'll be your mentor. I'll teach you how to do things. And he's like, no, absolutely not. You know. So.
Oh, good for him. That's interesting that he tried. That's cool.
And here we have Hell.
Yeah.
Okay. And we have some preliminary artwork for Hell, which is a little different from what the final one as well.
You know, there's a matter of taste again. I just didn't want that. I wanted something a little more dramatic. I wanted that's a little that's you know it's certainly got the personality. It's a little too laid back for me. I wanted something a little more dramatic. And she might be the only. No, Isis. That's the two female characters. Well, there you go. Then there we did. We hit it. And then I just had to tell Daryl to remove the black background so that we could have Tom do the backgrounds so that they all connect.
Yeah, that certainly is very dramatic lighting there too. It's a lot of fun with her face almost in shade, you know.
Yeah. Oh, and in this one, it's more lit up. It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, well, it's hard not to like these kind of characters. They survived centuries of time, so they must be interesting characters. And that's kind of got an underworld feel here also. I like the Loki group. All three of them are evil. All three of the Greeks are good. And the Atlanteans or Egyptians are mixed at this time.
Yeah, you get sort of a split in that one. Okay.
You know, you're always thinking to keep things kind of even, and you're also asking what's coming next. So, loved creating this set. I've been sitting on this yet again for a few years. And I couldn't be any happier with it, to be honest.
So I wanted to talk to you about these sort of power effect cards. I don't know if there's a battle effect cards, some other games call them, but can you talk about how you came up? I mean, we talked a little bit about the power ring, but the idea to do this sort of card where you would cut it up and have these little battle cards on your tabletop while you're playing.
Yeah, a couple of things. One, we've sort of gotten in the habit now with the Champions new expansions of having some special other thing that goes with it. Started with that something I really liked a lot. It was one of the battle for Centra with the Athrans, with all of their stuff that came with that set, plus a map. What did we have? We had a ticket.
Yeah, ticket.
Ticket to a show. We've done some of the foil cards now too. And when I was thinking, what would it be for this? Loki and Deus had some sort of magic or power thing. Well, and Anubis too. I mean, it just became kind of clear that there could be three of these power-up things added. The question is, how do you do it? And I think it turned out good how we did it because, like I said, I did it with mine, and they cut out real easy if you can draw a straight line. I mean, cut on it. And that shouldn't be too hard. And I cut them out, and I have them here at the table. It's just an added element for gameplay.
This also seems like
does that work for you?
Yeah. I bought an extra set so I could cut them out, so I could keep one card perfectly mint and then cut up another one. But what I think these would be fun for almost is, especially like the Anubis one, is when you're playing against somebody else, like in person, head to head, and you sort of have that card in your hand, and you're just like the Deus one is before the match, but where you could just put that out there, while you're playing. Do you think?
like a magic card, what they call an instant or something to that effect, where somebody plays a card, then you say, "Sorry, stop." Oh,
Yeah.
throw that down.
Do you think this is something we could see more of? More of these sort of, battle cards or battle effect cards?
If it fits some storyline. The Anubis one, I sometimes forget because I'm not used to playing that and how powerful its potential can be. And one time I had a match end and he lost, and I realized I forgot. It was only like a minute later. And I thought, I can't let this stand. I had to go back and say, sorry. And I can't remember if it changed the match. It might have.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, these are a lot of fun, and I actually made a video of me cutting up to put on my YouTube channel so everyone could see actually cutting up a Champions of the Galaxy card. Well, I want to talk a little bit about Promoter Prime because we have some characters that went along with Mythworld in Promoter Prime, but I wanted to go back to the beginning of 2024 and talk about, because we didn't get to talk about these last time because they came out after we had already talked about 2139, and that is sort of the characters that were released for when Secret History Female Warriors came out. And so just very briefly, we don't have to spend a ton of time on these characters, but here we have Nakano Takeko in her, when she first came to sort of 2139, or maybe even a little bit earlier, to get her footing as a wrestler.
Right. This drawing, another nice one by Tom Rickard, came before the Darryl Banks one, which became official first. But this drawing already existed. And when I was doing Secret History, this was one of the drawings that we thought, well, we'd already done it. We can say this is her just a little bit before she comes in. And that's all I really have to say about it.
Yeah. Well, and then we had, this was probably one of my favorite drawings of Galaxia, who I used quite a bit after it came out because I was still playing out the tail end of my year. So I loved working her in, sort of the thing. But this is just a fun, unique looking, I don't think we've seen a character necessarily who looks like this ever before.
No, I agree. And
Yeah.
I brought her to Mythworlds just because I felt like using her sometimes. That's just Tom Rickard doing some really nice work.
And then probably one of the most talked about characters amongst promoters, and the character that taught me how to spell the word sarsaparilla, Sarsaparilla, the ice cream girl. I had no idea there was an R in sarsaparilla until this card came along.
I forgot, yeah.
Yeah.
But I always have to look it up before I put it online because I sometimes forget. This is just an ode to, I've said this probably before, to a more innocent time, a kind of character they might have had in wrestling 40 years ago and in comic books 40, 50, 60 years ago. That's all just pure fun. That's all there is to it. Anybody who would ever read anything more into that is just a byproduct of a fallen era that we live in.
Yeah. Well, and it's not like, it's not like she's in a major storyline, that involving, ISIS and hell and all that. She comes in at the beginning to get the crowd to cheer, and that's it. So
pretty much.
Yeah. All right.
I had her in the Worlds too, just because if I ever feel like using the character, I could.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes you need, it's a perfect person for, say, Hell to go up against first because she's probably going to win. Hell's probably going to be able to beat her, so you can give Hell a couple wins before she goes on against somebody else.
Exactly, and in that case, it's a great contrast between pure evil versus pure innocence.
Yeah. You can almost just see Hell staring at her like, what is this? Yeah. What am I looking at?
With her stare.
And here we have the updated natives that came out around Myth World 2. Can you talk about sort of advancing their characters for this new set?
Yeah, well, they've been around for so long without it. I thought they could use it, but I will tell you what really was going on here. And in fact, I'm going to be posting a news story probably this weekend, introducing our game fans to our new staff artist, Nate. And I believe I've said that, at least in words on the message board. I wanted to start to work with him. And this was one of those starts. Let me see what you can do with these two characters, just to get our feet wet. And so I liked it because the background is that's I can't remember whether that's Nate or Tom Rickard, to be honest with you. I forget. It's kind of got a pop art feel to it, a design. I thought that's kind of cool. But yeah, I thought it's time for them to be at least a little better. They've been around long enough not to be total pushovers. They're almost sympathetic creatures, always moved around like pawns on a chessboard by everybody else. And I wanted to do a slight variation to their names. And to give, now I'm even forgetting one of their names. Could you tell me their names?
Hegor and Crude, I think is. Yes, Krudde. Yeah.
Igor is just as neurotic. He's scared. Crude has got a little more gumption in him. He's like, kind of wanting to assert himself. And that's what I wanted to come through.
Where did you hook up with Nate? When did you meet Nate? And I mean, I know you're going to do this article, but we'll get the scoop here on the podcast.
Yeah. Well, in good old Prescott, Arizona. Prescott is an old Western town in Arizona, real old Western town, real charming downtown too. And so I go there sometimes because they've got some good stores there. They got an album store, Sedona doesn't have a lot of some of these pop culture-ish things. They have an excellent bookstore with tremendous comic book and graphic novel section. And I was hanging out there looking at the stuff, and lo and behold, there's somebody else. And he started to talk to somebody else, Nate did, and talked about how he's an artist and he's whatever else he was saying at the time, but my ears are perking up. And when his conversation ended, I approached him and just said, hey, I hear you're an artist. And well, anyway, one thing led to another through our conversation there, to me giving him I don't know if you'd call it a tryout, but you got to make sure that you have chemistry with an artist, that they fit the style you want. And, and so we worked together on this. And I believe I can't remember if it might have just been these two. And then we moved right from this to him doing early classics, which
right.
he's doing right now.
Yeah.
So anyway, I met him in the store. We communicated to each other by email. He said he really would love to do it. And so here we are.
Excellent.
And it's great for us. I wrote about it. It's nice to have a bigger staff so that we can, not overwork Werner, whose work is outstanding. And we lean on him a lot. We lean on Daryl at certain times. Now we've got Tom Rickard. We've got Nate. So, we can spread it out a bit.
Well, and that's, comic books have always had different artists, it's really kind of keeping to that traditional comic book roots where, I don't know how many Spider-Man comic books are currently being published, but they all have different artists, so it's great to have different artists working on different things. So then we also had Catfight drawn by Tom Rickard, and you sent along some great early versions of these two. This is sort of an early design here by Tom as well. So, did you for this one, because this is a little bit different pose and sort of card layout than what we've seen before. Is this something where you just let Tom go to work, or did you sort of give him direction, like you wanted Zira in the back, or?
Yeah, this is me giving direction.
Okay.
I do like occasionally to have a different approach, something that's unique, and a promoter prime thing with a character that is simply getting an update is a safe place to experiment and do something different. And so we did that. That's a great, I just thought this was a really cool start. That's why I
Yeah.
shared this with you. It's just a neat little layout there from Tom for us to start with.
And then I love this too. The new vibe proudly welcomes Catfight and Zira.
I was going to do that.
Yeah.
I just didn't. I just thought that the card didn't look right that way.
Well,
To me, it was like a circus poster type thing.
Well, that's when this got posted, because this was one of the teasers leading up before Mythworlds came out as well. And when this came out, there were a couple people who said that it kind of looked like one of those black light posters from, the 70s or whatever, that they used to sell in the back of Spencer's Gifts or whatever, the velvety, kind of posters. So my question is, could this ever be released as a poster? Maybe this would be fun to release as a poster for fans.
If enough of our fans really wanted that, we would consider it. I never thought about it.
Yeah, I
would just leave it at that.
It's a super fun design. And the card came out great too. What I also loved about this card was it sort of harkened back to the days where, the early game editions where there was a box and the character was in the box, and this almost looks like she's stepping out of it,
I like that about it too. And I didn't really see how powerful that is until I was playing with them.
Yeah.
And that card would always stand out for having that border.
Well, I
agree with you.
Yeah, I want to say that I've been loving Promoter Prime, Champions of the Galaxy Promoter Prime recently, because it has featured wrestlers from sort of the current timeline, Galaxia and Sarsaparilla and the Natives and now Catfight. Can we expect COTG Prime to sort of continue getting these sort of main characters or updates of characters who are in the game?
Yeah, I think that's quite possible. And yeah, I'm still working out in my mind what I want to do for December. Something like that would be possible at that point.
Excellent. Well, before we get to promoter questions, I have a couple questions I want to ask you. In your playing, what have been some of your hottest feuds going on in your Fed that you've rolled out so far?
Boy, that's a good question. Well, Anubis and I've been building up the conflict where the people of Mythworlds are the good guys anyway, are starting to realize that Pinnacle maybe isn't to be trusted. And so Anubis and Pinnacle is the main event on my next supercard. And they both have belts, which is awesome, so it's natural. Heavyweight champion versus interplanetary. The belts aren't on the line, but it's a huge match. And if Anubis wins, you never know what that leads to. He might have to get a title shot if he wins it. So that one is one that has been built up. I've had an alliance and a battle between Kraken and Anubis developing also, which has invited in the Titans. So I've developed that a bit. And I guess I would have to go and reread all my stuff to remember, because, some feuds build up and then you move on to the next ones that build up. And then it's this continuing cycle of feuds developing.
Are there any
I'm sure I'm forgetting something.
Are there any characters from Mythworlds that have been performing differently than you expected them to perform when you were creating them?
I just put 8 seconds of thought into that, and the answer is no. They're about where I expect. I really enjoyed working with Loki and Vale. because there's so many storylines that work around them. So they became my tag champs for a while. And like I said, you could do so many things. I'm probably going to have him get a hold of that power ring at some point. There's the whole Basilisk issue. And the Basilisk in my Fed was just simply underperforming. I built that into the story that when he's under this spell, he just is in like a fog. So when he comes out of that fog and away from Loki, that's going to be an interesting feud, let's say, between the Basilisk and Vale, the Basilisk and Loki. And can Loki gain control of somebody else to try to counterbalance that? So I like working with the Loki character in terms of storylines.
Do you have? I mean, we didn't even talk when we talked about Pinnacle about his finisher, but you have sort of Pinnacle's finisher. You have Anubis's power, his precognition. You have Loki's control power. You have the power ring. Do you have a favorite mechanic or move that you came up with in this set that you've really had a lot of fun playing with?
Yeah, the Anubis one.
Yeah,
when I can remember it. But I really think that one's a cool one. I don't think I've ever done anything like that before. And because the power up thing's been done before. I can't remember when, but it's been done. And it's just the power ring's just a little different version of it. The Loki controlling is a kind of a new thing too, though, as far as I can remember. But I like the Anubis one. It fits the character, and it's, I think, unique.
Well, when we chatted at Galacticon about the new set, you mentioned that when or if the GWF ever goes back to sort of their own galaxy, they would go back to sort of the moment they left, meaning that it would be the beginning of 2140. Am I remembering that correctly? Is that still sort of your idea?
Yeah. Now, let me quickly say they should, by the rules upon which Godsend set for that, they should go back to that exact frozen moment, and then things should just unfreeze. And that's presumably what happened with the Crime Stoppers when they returned. So I hope that's an answer to your question. That is the idea. That is.
Yeah. No, it is.
When they return should be 2140.
Right. And if that does happen, it'll be this interesting thing where these people have lived this whole other time,
Well, and their body.
Yeah.
Remember, I don't know how many. I don't know if 3 years in this new dimension or any dimension is the same exact thing when they return in 2140 that one would say, well, we had 3 years away and now they're back. So they aged 3 years or 4 years or whatever it turns out to be. That would not be necessarily the logical conclusion that 4 sets for us is 4 years, because this is a different universe in which time proceeds at a different pace.
Yeah.
But their bodies should be older. It's just a matter of how much older. They have taken those bumps. They have forgotten a lot, but that doesn't mean they haven't done a lot.
Yeah.
It depends on the power of Godsend and how much he can return them. And it's going to be interesting thing as we sell these sets in the future. Let's say now 10 years from now. I'm still planning 10 years from now. I'll be like nearly 80 and you'll be having this discussion with me and I'll be getting up and down very slowly. But there's going to be, when you buy the games, 38, 39, boom. Mythworlds 1, 2, 3, whatever, or not Mythworlds, Multiverse 1, 2, 3 with it. And then boom, there's 2140 suddenly out there now. So it's different.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to it. Speaking on that, on the message board, L.A. Wraith asked, at the moment, how many game editions do you see MythWorlds running? And will the new wrestlers be around for a while? Like, say, if they go back, will some of these characters from MythWorlds or the multiverse come back to the main universe?
Okay, so for how long? I'm not sure. I do have plans. So this will last at least in Earth years now, our time years, at least another year or two. And that's all I can say. I don't like to paint myself into a corner. But that's what my thoughts are. I've got ideas for this. The second, people, yeah, people coming and going. Who joins the GWF no matter where they go next? Who decides to stay in MythWorlds? This is to be determined by the stories as they develop and by the characters themselves who tell me what they want to do.
That's your neighbors walking by again going, who is he talking to?
I know. They're used to it, thank God, by now.
Well, On the Edge asked if there are any plans to include possibly any fairy tale elements into future MythWorld editions to explore some of these other myth worlds, like maybe some of the fairy tales, or will you to broaden that out a little bit? We've seen sort of the Egyptian, we've seen the Greek, we've seen the Norse. Are there other myth worlds you're looking at?
All I can answer with that is those doors are open. My creative process, especially now, is both planned and wide open simultaneously. I don't know if that makes any sense, but the creative process isn't really a sensible process. It's a process that's built on a kind of a mystical quality. And so I would just say I can't answer those at the moment. Anything's possible.
Right. So Swarm asked, I noticed Catfight got an update, and if Pinnacle is Perfect Specimen, he got an update, and they are both originally they're both Future Shock wrestlers from a different galaxy than the main GWF galaxy. So should we be watching what Catfight does closely the same way we're watching Pinnacle for clues that he may really be Perfect Specimen in some form? Because it is interesting that those two characters are from the Future Shock era,
It's true. Well, either that is exactly on the right track to figuring that out, or it's not. And I cannot say at this time.
Well, and then a follow-up, he asked, and is there a possibility that maybe the new Catfight is somehow not exactly the original Catfight, the same way that Pinnacle isn't exactly Perfect Specimen? So he's really going on Pinnacle is Perfect Specimen.
Oh, right. I'd say that none of these things can definitively be concluded. Nor can they be excluded. Isn't that awful? I commend people who see these types of connections and don't want to tie myself down to any of those interpretations at this time.
Excellent. Well, our friend Kevin Butcher has a question. KB on the message boards. With God Sent Back, will we ever see Vala released from that cage? Kevin is very concerned about Vala in that cage.
Imagine that, an eternity in a cage.
Yeah.
Can we expect that? That's yet another loose end that has not been tied up yet. And yet Vala is one of those people on those other levels that are trying to, fighting these battles. There we go again. Anything is possible. These are all very good questions.
And the final promoter question I have is from user FCB72.
Hey, by the way, since we're heading into an election season, I'm just answering questions like a politician. That's all.
Perfect.
Yes.
We will fact check everything after after this podcast.
Hopefully that'll be a real one. Yes.
So FCB72 asks if Mythworlds is the beginning of Tom testing excursions into other universes, seeing as it said Multiverse 1 on the cover of the handbook, sort of on a semi-regular basis, could we see, say, the Crime Stoppers universe, or exploring where Endgame and Cosmic Woman ended up? I don't know if that's the same as the Crime Stoppers universe, but it seems like Mythworlds and Secret History could open up some doors for other stories to be told.
Right. Well, people have to tell me, would they like to see that? I do definitely have ideas in my mind. The Crime Stoppers was never a one and done. That's how much patience I have. They've been gone, years now? But since now it's pretty clear that the GWF is, how does it go? For life, right? I figure I've got the rest of my lifetime to work all these things out. So there's definitely the Crime Stoppers is not done yet. And let me just perhaps these two things do interweave. And certainly there is some logic to that. And I do I get bored easily myself. 50 some game editions I've written. Going to Mythworlds to me was a nice departure creatively that just opened yet more new doors for us to explore. I've enjoyed that immensely, and I guess it'll probably see the fate of a lot of the other worlds I've created is when they leave, if they leave, maybe they're Mythworlds forever. Anybody ever think of that? That they'll never be at 2140?
It might happen.
Would it be Mythworlds 1? No, wait. Multiverse 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. To the very end. Mythworlds 1, 2, 3. But anyway, if they do leave, I'm certain that there will be people, myself probably included, who would be like, all right, GWF left. Well, what's going on there?
Right.
And so that could open up a whole new one of those many CPC and many other universes that were opened up. But I like creating new things. And that's why it was time for me to try something new with Multiverse. I'm a big fan of Multiverse, just like it was big in Marvel and much sci-fi today. It appeals to me not only creatively but philosophically, because look at the metaphysics of it, the many things that are opened up when you consider those possibilities. And yet, the real important thing is that your main universe remains intact so that it doesn't fall into the chaos that is DC and Marvel. Because they've had so many decades of trying to do the same things I'm doing, but they got a big problem. You can't age Batman. You can't age Superman. I mean, they do that in little spurts. Yeah. Peter Parker went from a 17-year-old teenager to like a 25-year-old and then stopped. And he's aged 8 years in the last 50 years, or something like that. My characters really age. And so I'm able to have this changing, but the universe itself must retain continuity that can be identified. And I am working so hard to maintain that. So I hope that makes sense. I hope our fans do appreciate that I take our universe that seriously, that I don't want it to fall into just this chaos of all these other worlds. Even though those other worlds are fascinating to visit for storylines.
Excellent. Well,
what do you think of that, Grant?
I got a little burnt out on the multiverse stuff. I'm talking about from a Marvel standpoint, where it's like, oh, there's 8 different Spider-Men, and they, like I thought some of those movies were cool, and I like how the main movies have kind of tried to tie in the other Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. Like I appreciate that, but I'm just like, tell me new stories with these characters. I don't want 5 alternate versions of Spider-Man. So that's why I love Myth Worlds, because Myth Worlds is we are going to another universe, but it's not. Here's the anti Shane, or here's this universe's version of the Gladiators. Here are these new characters that are in this universe. The Egyptian myths and the Greek myths and the Norse myths. I like that. I like exploring that kind of thing. And I think on the message boards, I don't know how much you read on the message boards, but there was some discussion about like, oh, we're seeing the gladiators are still fighting the Animen after all these years. And jumping to Myth Worlds, now you have new feuds. It's like, oh, well, now it's the Greek myth folks against the gladiators, and that's sort of a breaking, and that's what people wanted. And I think this is a lot of fun. My only problem is you have to figure out some way in this universe for us to get more time in the day to play, because I don't have nearly enough time to play as I'm thinking in my head. So if you can get on that, Tom, if you can have Godsend find something to do about that would be great.
Do you want me to start bending time? I'll work on it. I guess that the time is right for that. It's a bigger roster, and that's why I did my latest card in some ways, is to bring in some of the people I haven't had time to do storylines around, bring them into matches that might develop a storyline for them. But you're right. It is a lot.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, now I was just about to wrap up, but you've brought up another question that I'm going to ask you about Myth Worlds. Is how did you decide? Like, because it seems that for the most part, everybody came to Myth Worlds. There were a couple people who were left off the roster and maybe stayed back. But was there any sort of thought of like, how many to bring or how many to leave, or was it just who fit your stories? How did you decide that?
Well, it was a very inclusive thing. I thought they've been frozen, and Godsend is just simply taking all of them. They didn't have a choice, and we're entering a new world. It's like if the Avengers are being taken to a new universe to fight some new villains, do you only take part of them or do you take all of them? And because that they're going to be moving on somewhere again. So I made the decision or non-decision to Godsend just grab them all, except a couple notable exceptions, which provides some fodder for storyline development. It's because it wasn't a normal year where some people go and new people come and you're in the same place, and so it follows a normal progression. This isn't a normal progression, and so I just had everybody go, and who knows how that will sort itself out after Myth Worlds and wherever they go next, if they go somewhere else next. Sorry, I hope that's a decent answer to that.
No, that's question. Great. Godsend wanted to bring all his toys. He didn't want to leave any of his toys back there. Well,
and so I'm sorry to interrupt.
No. I'm happy to talk about this all day.
Yeah, me too, actually. So it's a glory of riches. If you find that the Fed is too big for all those people, think in yourself, how can I just write some people out then? Or put them aside to work on your current feuds. This is the way I do it. And then once those feuds run out, put those people aside and bring some of those other ones in. It's kind of like the way real promotions would run in wrestling, where new blood enters and others go. You're just doing it within Myth Worlds And it's your choice which characters to do that with.
Well,
like
and
I've had the Centrans, is it the Centrans? Castellics, on the sidelines for a while. Just because I don't have a real story for them yet. So they're just gone. But they're not really gone. I presume they're doing house shows. But when I have a storyline for Sentinel and Moog that's a strong one, and Vizier, then I'm going to bring them in, and it might be a feud with some team. But for now, they're not getting a lot of play.
Well, and one thing that we've talked about here on my channel before is the idea that not everybody needs. I mean, you do such a great job of laying out feuds and who people can, have kind of natural battles with in the handbook. But when you're running sort of a wrestling federation, is not everybody needs a big major feud that's at the top of the card, and it's okay to only have one or two feuds that you're focusing on, and you can fill out the rest of the cards with just people fighting each other, and maybe a feud will come out of those, but they don't have to have any other reason to fight each other than one's a good guy, one's a bad guy, or they're trying to get up the ranking to maybe get a belt or whatever, and that could be the reason that they're fighting. It doesn't have to be you said bad things about my mama and now I'm coming after you, you could just focus on those big ones and just fill out the rest of the card with matches, and maybe something will come out of there.
Yeah, totally agreed.
Yeah.
This latest card I created is got that random feel to it. It's not moving along any of my storylines or feuds, but it's a way to jumpstart some if a match goes interesting.
Excellent. Well, Tom, I don't want to take up any more of your time. We've talked well over an hour now about Myth Worlds, but well deserved. And just thank you again for reaching out. As I said, these are the highlight of my year in terms of the gaming thing, and I know the fans really like this. So just thank you so much for taking the time to be here.
And thank you, Grant. That's a very outstanding service you're providing to our fans, and I appreciate them so much, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to keep writing these stories, which I still enjoy writing. So fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to everybody.
Again, many thanks to Tom Filsinger for being on the show. It's always amazing to sit down and chat about the new set with Tom, and I'm just happy that he enjoys doing it. I also asked Tom about possibly being on the show to discuss, kind of like what we did with Corey Olsen, to discuss how he runs his Fed, how he kind of gave us a little preview there in the video. He held up one of his match sheets. So hopefully we'll get him back on there soon to talk about that. But that's going to do it for this time. If you have a topic you would like the show to cover, you can leave it in the comments. Make sure you subscribe or follow wherever you're listening to this. You can check out my personal Filsinger Games Feds at gwfpromoter.com and lowpromoter.com. The theme song is American Guy by Throwing Toasters, used by permission and available on Apple Music, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your music. This podcast is not affiliated in any way with any gaming company or their subsidiaries. It's purely for entertainment purposes. This episode is copyright 2024 Saturday Morning Media. Grant Pachoco, executive producer. All rights reserved. www.saturdaymorningmedia.com.